are talking. You are now listening to The Box Out, Tri-State area basketball talk at its best. And now your hosts, Kahlil Thomas and Jason Cordner. Let's get it.
From NJ to BK and the world, it's The Box Out here on the One Podcast Network. My name is Kyrie Thomas. Joining me in just a few minutes will be Jason Cordner from Brooklyn, New York. We've been off. It's my fault. My day job has been taking over a lot of my time, so I have not had time to do the podcast, to come on YouTube, go on speaker, and on Spotify and all that stuff. So my apologies, my fault completely, so that's on me. But we are back. And we had a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. And the one thing about us being off so long is we missed the NBA Finals, essentially. We completely out. Finals are over. We didn't get to preview it. We did nothing. But I predicted before the finals started that it would be the Mavericks in 6. I thought that the Celtics, that their path to the NBA Finals was a little easier than most teams because of all the teams they played, it seemed as if the star player for those teams were missing, right? Jimmy Butler was missing from Miami. Halliburton was missing from Indiana. So whenever they played a team, it seemed like their top players was missing. So it didn't seem like they weren't really pushed. They didn't face the team that they faced. They didn't get their best shot because their best players were out. So going into the NBA Finals, I thought there's no way in hell that the Celtics beat the Mavericks. Mavericks seemed like they were tested and all that mess. Then came the NBA Finals, where I looked like a complete jackass and was completely wrong. Celtics win the series 4-1. And listen, I was wrong about the Celtics. Right? It seems as if, and I think the owner said during the trophy presentation after the game that, the Celtics, Brad Stevens, they kind of knew they couldn't stay as is from last year, right? They couldn't stay packed. They had to make moves. You bring in a Drew Holiday. You bring in a Porzingis. And I think what they figured was, we'll keep that core. We'll keep Jason Tatum. Obviously, you signed Jaylen Brown to a ridiculous contract, which, whether it's a good contract or bad contract, whether he deserves it, whether he doesn't deserve it, that's neither here nor there. It is a crazy contract that Jaylen Brown signed, that Tatum's going to sign eventually. You got to get Tatum in there too. You keep those two, and then you have these ancillary pieces like the Al Horfords, the Peyton Pritchards, Sam Hauser. You have all these different players, and you add in Porzingis that added an element that really should have been Danilo Gallinari last year before Gallinari got hurt and couldn't play a season. But a better Danilo Gallinari, like a way better Danilo Gallinari, is Kristaps Porzingis. Drew Holiday brings you the defense, also brings some scoring too. So I feel like the moves they made in the offseason was definitely one of those moves like we had to do something. And on the surface, the Drew Holiday deal made sense. Porzingis was always a kind of wild card because you know he's going to be healthy or just beat up like he always is. And obviously saw different various points of the season, including the finals, he got hurt. But it seems as if the team kind of brought it together in this finals. And because everybody went against them. I don't think many people said, I got the Celtics in the series. A lot of people said, hey, we got the Mavs. Bruce, what's up, man? Thank you. We're back. And listen, I started the show. My day job killed me. So I'm going to be blunt. That was my fault. So congrats to the Celtics for winning that medical championship. Listen, we'll get to the Mavericks side a little bit later, but I will say, and I want to give Boston credit. Tatum played well. Jaylen Brown, Finals MVP, definitely deserved the MVP. It was a team effort. And I think Brad Stevens did a good job of putting together this team and kind of getting the pieces in the right spots and figuring out where they lacked, what they needed help in, what they couldn't do, blah, blah, blah. So it was Brad Stevens is the MVP of this team and figuring out what Tatum and what Brown needed to go with them to win this title. Because if they didn't win this year, the Tatum hate was strong, even in the playoffs. Let's put it out there. Celtics ran through the Eastern Conference, but people still like Tatum's not that guy. He's not that guy. So the Tatum hate was still there. Could you imagine the Tatum hate if the Celtics didn't win the title this year and they came up short? It would have been ridiculous to the point where Brad Stevens would have had to think about moving Jason Tatum. That would have had to be a conversation that Stevens and ownership would have had to have this offseason if Boston did not win a championship. Do we move off of Tatum and give the keys, the complete keys to the franchise to Jaylen Brown? I think now you still have a power sharing situation between Brown and Tatum. You have to at some point find out who the alpha dog is on this team. We don't know who it is yet. I think it's Jaylen Brown. I think a lot of people might be like, Tatum could be the alpha, but he ain't there yet. We don't know. Could he be the alpha eventually? The thought was it was Tatum's team. Brown was the Robin. He was Batman. Now I think you can really look at it and go, Brown's Batman, Tatum's Robin. And I think this is where we are right now. So I think if they get that squared away and get that power structure settled, I think you have a team where you have a Jaylen Brown. It's his team, and Tatum's is there, not there for the ride, but Tatum's behind him. His hype man. Tatum is bizarre to Brown's Eminem right now. If you look at D12, that's how it would go. So that's what I'm going to do right now. All right, I'm going to compare them to D12. That's what I'm doing on our first show back in 4 weeks. It's great. It's awesome. Mavericks side. Here's the issue with the Mavericks. After game one, they lost the game one. And obviously, whenever Kyrie goes back to Boston, he gets hate. And Boston fans gave it to him, and which was expected and known was going to happen. Kyrie, after the game, goes, I thought about her. Just poking the bear. Just poke. Listen, at the end of the day, Kyrie Irving in 3 games in Boston shot under 40% from the field. He did not play his best games in Boston. Obviously, the games they played in Dallas showed out. But in Boston, and it's been this way not just these 3 games in the finals, but anytime he's gone back to Boston since he left, it seems like Kyrie has this block of playing in Boston. You could spray all the sage you want and light it up. You can do that as much as you want. It ain't going to work in Boston. Part of it is I think he gets his own head. He knows what happened with that franchise. He knows what he did to that franchise. So deep down, it's kind of a karma. I think it's a karma thing. All right? People don't believe in karma. I'm a believer in karma. Right? Sometimes when you do some bad shit to people, you get some bad shit back. And Boston is going to be his shop of horrors for the rest of his career. Because the way he treated them. Think about when he was hurt in that early stage of Tatum Brown's career. They made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, and he almost seemed unhappy about it. He almost seemed like he didn't like the fact that this young team kind of like galvanized and like said, we're going to, we don't have our leader, because Kyrie was the leader of that team. Let's keep it 100. Kyrie was the leader of the Celtics when he was there. We don't have our leader. We're going to go to the NBA Final. We're going to push. Kyrie didn't like it. Kyrie comes back the next year, tells Boston fans, oh, yeah, I'm coming back. I'm going to resign. Didn't resign. And which is miserable his whole last year in Boston until he goes to Cleveland. So I think the problem becomes Kyrie can't play in Boston because Kyrie knows that he screwed up. And this is what happens. When you talk about Luka Doncic, Luka's going to put up his points, but we saw it in game 3. I would say game 3, and people say game 4, the biggest game of Luka's career. Game 3 was that game where Luka had to show out and keep Boston close. Luka had to bring Boston 2-1 in game 3. He fouled out. Complained to the refs, picked up 4 fouls. Was it 4 fouls in 6 minutes or 7 minutes and foul out the game, complaining. Like, it's Luka. Luka does this all the time. Luka, complains about every single call against him, on him. He believes every time he's touched is a foul. In game 4 and game 5, you saw a more mature Luka, but that game 3 showed a lot that Luka's not ready for the spotlight. Luka's not ready for what he is, what he should be, based on his game 3 performance. And I'm going to put it on for that. Game 4 and 5 played better, played well, kept his mouth shut, didn't complain, but you definitely saw a young player who maybe was not ready for that spotlight, wasn't ready for that he wasn't ready for prime time in these finals. Maybe next year to get there, he'll be ready for it. But in this playoffs, he was not there. Bruce brings in people to media. Well, boosting Kyrie has the most skilled player, clutch, blah, blah, blah. He hit one shot over Curry. What things? Kyrie is skilled. All right. If you want to talk about most skilled guards in the NBA, I will put Kyrie up there. Kyrie, I think Stephen A, I hate him. Kyrie could be box office. Kyrie has those games where you're like, holy shit, Kyrie's good. Kyrie's really good. But then you have those other games, like these games in Boston in the finals, where you look at him and go, what happened? Like, he didn't show up. Dad and my father, John Thomas, Kyrie didn't show up. It surprised him. In Dallas, he showed up because he's home, he's comfortable. But to win the finals, you got to win on the road. All right. And unfortunately, for Kyrie, these games happened on the road in a place that he screwed over. And it's just a lot. It's a lot. And like I said, karma's a bitch. That's what it is. I will say this about Kyrie. I know John mentions it in the chat. Kyrie, this year, you could say you were waiting and we were waiting. Jason and I were both waiting for that Kyrie moment of him messing up and saying something crazy and doing something stupid, blah, blah, blah. Besides him winning the feather earring and all that shit, Kyrie was quiet this year. Right? Kyrie was just playing ball. Kyrie didn't do a lot, didn't say a lot. He didn't veer off into nothing that happened in Brooklyn. Right? Kyrie kind of kept his mind on basketball, and I will give him credit for that this year. We didn't hear anything crazy about Kyrie in Dallas. He legitimately seems like he likes Dallas, which is a good sign because Luka and Kyrie works well together. Their problem is, and now we're going to go to what they need to do. I'm not sure what they could do right now because you have Kyrie. You want to bring him back. It's going to cost some money. I think Luka might be up for an extension soon. That's going to cost a lot of money. So a lot of your money is going to be wrapped up in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving if you bring them both back. PJ Washington is not a lot of money, but we saw it. PJ Washington plays really well, and then it's PJ who in his last 6-7 games of the playoffs. I think Lively's gonna be a great player in the NBA. He has to get a better jump shot because you got to spread the floor and stretch out. I'm not sure what the ownership situation is in Dallas. I know Cuban gave up majority to the Adelson family, who owns the casinos in Vegas, but then he's still a governor. But then there was a report that he seemed kind of distant during the finals, so he wasn't really actively engaged, so no one really knows where he is. So now the ownership's falling into the Adelsons, and I don't know what's going to happen with this team. I think they might have to run it back as it is next year, and that's just what it's going to be. Dallas is going to be the same exact team unless they make some moves, make a trade. I know they have I think they have a mid-level they can use and a couple of swaps, but they don't have a lot of options right now when it comes to what they can do to really make this team better. When it comes to Boston, you have to run it back. Right? You got to run it back. You got to see what happens. Bruce, yeah. Cuban says moved on. He had said that publicly because here's the problem. I know when the sale was done, he said he was still the governor on the governor's list. So he would go to the meeting, stuff like that. And now apparently that changed, but no one knew it changed. So I was assuming that he was still kind of affiliated with the team, but not really affiliated, but still there for the major decisions. At the end of the day, who cares? It's the ownership. I will say this, though. With Cuban, you knew they were trying to get better. Cuban would do whatever he could do to make the team better, spend money when necessary. The Adelsons, I'm not sure how they are as owners, right? I know the older man, Adelson, who passed away, was a huge Trump supporter, so he's a douche. So I don't know how the family is, but we'll see. So I'm curious to see how that runs out and how that affects Luka in the long run, how that affects Kyrie, how that affects other players in the team. I want to bring up the salaries too, because I'm curious about where the Celtics are salary-wise, and who they have to pay, when they have to pay them. That's gonna be a big point too, because you can't pay everybody, and at some point, you got to open that bag and see what happens. You open the bag for one, you got to open the bag for the other. So let's look at Boston's situation financially. Let's get in Boston's pockets, see what they're doing. Bringing it up right now. So for 24-25, so this year they had a payroll of $186.9 million. 24-25, you're looking at a payroll. Jaylen Brown making 49.3, Tatum 34.8, and then next year he has a player option for 37. But you almost want to extend him sooner than later. Jrue Holiday comes back at 30. Porzingis comes back at 29.2. Derek White's at 20. Horford's at 9.5. You would almost hope that Horford wins this ring and leaves. Hopefully. Because one, he got his ring. Obviously, Horford was a shell of himself 5 years ago. Right? So look at what Al Horford is now. He got the ring. Hopefully he retires. That 9.5 comes with the books. You can use that. Peyton Pritchard comes back at 6. Hauser as a team option for 2. They're definitely picking that up. Brissett, who barely played, is making 2.4. So really, you're top heavy with Brown, Tatum, Holiday, Porzingis, and Derek White. If you want to move Derek White, he's a piece you could move. It's an expiring contract. So I could see them moving. Horford said he's coming back. Okay, well, it's 9.5. We ain't getting back then. Here's the problem. So Woj and Bruce said this. Woj said Celtics will sign Tatum 5 for 135. Here's a question. I'm going to put it out there. Do you need Tatum? Is Tatum like a necessity for this team? Obviously you have Jaylen Brown locked up for years. You have Jrue Holiday locked up for years. Porzingis is locked up through 2026. Could you get away with moving away from Jason Tatum? If I was me, and obviously I said this earlier, it's a conversation to be had if they lost the finals to bring back Jason Tatum. I think it's a conversation they should still have now. And think about it. You're in that luxury tax area. I think they're in that first level. I think they hit the second level if they go. I think they hit the second level next year. So you're already going to be hitting the double tax. He's up for 34.8, 5 for 135 is what Woj is saying. Is it worth bringing him back? Can you talk about it? Let's discuss it. Like, what could we get for Jason Tatum right now? And say, Jaylen, it's your team. We'll give you more pieces, obviously, because it can't just be you. It has to be someone else. You're 1A, it has to be a 1B. You're a 1, it has to be a 2, obviously. But let's put some feelers out. Let's see what happens. Right? Let's kind of just play it out and see what we get. I think it's a good conversation to have. Because 5 for 135 is not a bad number at all. That's a really good number for the Celtics. But could you use that money on someone else? And someone else more consistent? Because Tatum's good. I'm not saying Tatum's terrible. I'm not saying Tatum's a trash player. I'm not saying that. But could you do better? Right? Could you get 2 pieces to go with Jaylen Brown and keep it moving? Celtics not getting rid of Tatum. He's light-skinned. Celtics. Oh, my God, Bruce. Listen, I mean, it is Boston. You got to be a little light. Can't be completely dark in Boston. You got to, be passing in like dark areas. So perfect point. But it's a conversation to have, and hopefully they have it. Maybe. I do think they're going to bring him back, and obviously it's going to happen. But I'm just saying, it's a conversation to have. In regards to the Mavericks, as of this year, their payroll next year is going to be 174.8, which is $7 million higher than this year's payroll, 167. Let's see, Doncic 43, 43 even. Kyrie, 41. His player options next season, not this season. Tim Hardaway Jr. still around, 16.1. PJ Washington's 15.5. Daniel Gafford's 13.3. Josh Green, 12.6. Maxi Kleber's 11. Lively's still a rookie contract. That's 5, so it's not a lot. Dwight Powell, 4. Dante Exum, who I forgot was still in the league, 3.1. So their big money, like I said, goes to Luka, goes to Kyrie. You have Tim Hardaway expiring. You could probably move him. I think PJ Washington, they kind of want to see what they have in him for an entire year before they make a move. So I think he's settled. Gafford's making way too much money, but in the NBA, everybody is. 13.3 for Daniel Gafford. Insane, but he's making that. You have a Josh Green and Maxi Kleber. Those are whatever. Tim Hardaway is leaving. You're right, Bruce, because Hardaway barely saw the floor in the playoffs, especially in the NBA Finals. So he's going to be gone. They're going to move him. I don't think it's going to be a cut. I think it's going to be more of a trade, or we'll give you a pick swap or a second rounder or something like that for Hardaway. So there's some moves to be made for Dallas. I think more probably for Dallas than Boston. I see Boston more running it back as is. I see Dallas making little subtle moves, but nothing crazy. But having PJ Washington for the whole season is going to be big. Derrick Jones could leave, but it depends on what they offer him. And a player like Derrick Jones, a player like a Gafford, a player like a Kleber, a Dwight, if they like where they are and they feel like they're competing, I think you can get Derrick Jones at a discount. And I think it's tremendously possible to get him on a discount and he'll stay put. And they do need Derrick Jones. They need that defense, they need his body, that long frame. So that is the NBA Finals. NBA season's over. Next week, we will be back. I'm not done. I'm not saying goodbye yet. But next week, we'll be back on Wednesday night? Yeah, I think Wednesday's the draft. Our annual box out draft extravaganza. I'm going to warn you, we are not that interested in the draft this year at all. The comp is, according to Ryan Russillo, who talks to many different GMs, part of the Ringer Network, a lot of GMs in the NBA said this NBA draft is going to be like the NBA draft of normal years starting at pick number 8. So think of picks 1 through 7 in a normal year. This draft is going to start at pick number 8. This is where we are right now. So I think we're going to be here. We are going to be here. But we're going to probably sleepwalk through this thing. unless something happens. Obviously, Bronny James is going to be a story where he goes. The fact that it's such a weak draft is probably going to help him out and help his number out. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And we're at the point now where you're not getting a franchise transcendent player in this draft at all. There's no one in this draft like that. I'm sorry. There's names I can't pronounce in this draft at the top of the big board. All right. You're not getting players who are going to change the fortunes of a team. At this point, what you're going to get are players that are going to be these little pieces, rotation pieces. You might get a couple starters who are not going to make a huge dent. You might get some all-stars out of this draft. Might. But all eyes are on Bronny James to see where he goes. His representatives came out today and said, the reason they only selected 3-4 teams for him to work out for strategic is going well, and there's a reason for it. What the reason is, we don't know what the reason is, and that's the problem. Right? If you're Bronny James, coming out of college, averaging 3 points a game, before college, pretty much having a heart attack before the college season started, having a good high school career, nothing great, nothing magical. You had a good career at Sierra Canyon. If you're Bronny James, who should have stayed in college one more year, right? Whether it's USC, because I know Andy Enfield left USC. That's the player who, that's the coach who recruited him. So obviously he left there. I think he went to, I want to say SMU, but I could be wrong on that. He really should have another year in college to really prove himself, to really say, okay, this is what I can do. The freshman year is more early on, it was minutes restrictions, and he had to get in shape because he couldn't play basketball for months. Now we're at the point where, okay, you're coming out early, knowing you shouldn't be coming out at all. You're picking and choosing who you work out for, which is the bad look, when you should be working out for everybody. Everyone who wants to come see you, everybody who wants to invite you to their facility to work out, you should be there, right? You should be there and ready to go and ready to work out. So the idea of I'm going to be picky about who I work out for is a bad look because you need the visibility, right? You cannot live on being LeBron James' son at this point. What can you do for a team? Doesn't matter what team. If the Detroit Pistons, who we'll talk about in a minute, wants you to come out and play pickup ball in the middle 8 mile, you go. I don't know why there's so many Eminem references tonight. That's weird. You go out there, right? I think this is going to turn a lot of teams off and turn a lot of teams away from him. Where if he had a chance to be a first-round pick, I think this might prevent him from being a first-round pick. And I'm going to say this right now. If he's a first-round pick, because he's not a first-round pick, I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what the mocks say. I don't care what the scouts say. Bronny James is not a first-round NBA draft pick right now. He's a second-round pick. Worst case, undrafted free agent. He's not a first-round draft pick. So you need a lot of balls to fall for you to be a first-round draft pick. The first ball dropped. You're in the worst draft in 20 years, by far. So the first ball for you dropped, you're in a terrible draft. So automatically your stock goes up because you're in a shit draft. Now, the other part was you need teams to fall in love with you, whether it be through interviews, whether it be through on your on-court play. And in the combine, draft combine, he did well. 5-on-5s, he did well. Okay, great. Second ball to drop, you did well. However, here's my argument, and I will retain this argument through next week. You're in a draft combine with people who hope to be drafted in the weakest draft in 20 years. So you're not going up against top competition like in past years where you had drafts that were stacked. The Halliburton draft, that was a stacked NBA draft. We don't have that. So, yeah, you did well in the draft combine. Awesome. Congratulations. You did it against subpar competition. So the other thing, you need them to fall in love with you. So on the court, you're doing great. Okay, great. You're doing great against, competition from Conference USA or the American Athletic Conference. We need to talk to you face to face and see what you know and see what you can do. All right. You look at NFL quarterbacks, right? I think this is probably the comp is kind of odd, but I'm gonna go there anyway because who cares? NFL quarterbacks before they get drafted, their whole idea is they want to get in the room, talk to teams throw out plays, or say, hey, show us an example of something that you ran in college. Here's the expo marker, go to the board, show us what you know. And they get up there and show, okay, we ran this play, this, X goes here, Y goes here, blah, 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 blah. And they sit down and have a conversation with them. Forget the Wonderlic, that's bullshit, whatever. Forget the odd questions about moms being hookers. No. A legit man-to-man conversation, nothing to throw the kids off. Quarterbacks thrive on that because they want the teams to get to know who they are, know their personality, know that they're up for the challenge, know that they're down for business. I think that's big. A lot of NFL quarterbacks who get drafted, do they have great pro days? Yeah, it's all scripted. Do they have okay combine days? Yeah, but once again, it's a combine. You're in shorts and a t-shirt. A lot of the money is made in those interviews and in those workouts privately, and those conversations, the dinners, right? Caleb Williams sat and went out to dinner in Chicago with the Bears and just wowed them. Of like, he's in Chicago, big city. He's roll with it. Bronny needs to go. Bronny needs to smooth, and he's not doing a good job of this, right? He's now going through people, and his people are dealing with the teams, and his people are setting up the workouts, and his people are doing this, and his people are doing that. Bronny's not getting himself out there. And I think that's going to cost him because in a draft that is by far god awful. This was your shot to make an impact and to exceed expectations. And you are not doing that right now, Bronny James. All right. 30-second break. I'll come back. We'll talk WNBA. The Liberty. Are they the best team in the WNBA? I think so. We'll talk about that. 30 seconds. Here on the Box Out, Kahlil Thomas with me. Jason Cordner's stuck in life, which is just our saying for the last couple of weeks, just stuck in real life, man. So you got me all alone till 9 o'clock, maybe a little earlier, we'll say. We're going to move on to the WNBA. The Liberty, 12-3. And I know Bruce has been waiting for this conversation to start, and I'm gonna get there. So obviously, you have the Connecticut Sun, who are 13-1. They are the best team in the WNBA right now. The Liberty just lost the game last night to the Mercury, which snapped their 8-game winning streak. 12-3 in the season that, listen, going into this season, the Liberty had to make a point, and they had to make a statement, right? They beat the Aces in the Commissioner's Cup, which is great. You know, like the in-season tournament in the NBA. We all love it. It's great. Awesome. But they lost the Aces in the WNBA finals, which is obviously more important than anything else. So what do you do, right? You know you have to come out strong, and you got to show the league that we mean business and we're not playing around. And they've done that. They played Vegas already, beat Vegas, which I think was a big statement win. The question now becomes, can they keep it going? Connecticut seems to be the one team that I think could compete with the Liberty. And I said it before, Connecticut could compete with the Liberty and the Aces because they have that size. DeWanna Bonner, she's a beast, right? Alyssa Thompson, a beast. So I think physically, the Sun really matches up with the Aces really well and does give the Liberty a lot of trouble because of that physicality. The problem becomes now is, you know, Jonquel Jones is playing her best basketball, and we got to remember from last year too. Jonquel Jones really didn't get into the flow of the season until like way past the midway point. She was hurt coming into the season. She was out of shape. So it took her half the season to really get to where she needed to get to. She's completely healthy. She's playing probably the best basketball she's played in a couple of years since her MVP year. Vegas is hurt. A lot of bodies. Chelsea Gray's hurt. They're banged up. Defensively, which is like Becky Hammon's big thing, they're not playing great defense. So it becomes a question of, is this a blip for Vegas? 6-6 right now, 4-6 in the last 10. Is this a blip? Will they get it together? Obviously, Chelsea Gray's hurt. Bruce is already saying when she gets back, they'll be fine. Will they? You know, they've won back-to-back titles. Bullseye's on them. They're getting everybody's best work. We can say the Aces could be done. Are the Aces done? I'm not saying it. It looks like they are 6-6. Like it looks like they're falling behind. Right now, they're 7th in WNBA behind Atlanta, Phoenix, Seattle, Minnesota, obviously Liberty, and then Connecticut. Kind of like Tatum. Let's have the conversation. Vegas can be done. And Connecticut's always gotten close and never is able to get over the hump. Is it their time? Right? Seattle's kind of getting it together now. It was kind of dicey early in the season, but they've got an 8-2 run, so they're starting to get it together. The team that shocked me every season, I get screwed over by Dallas. 3-10, 2-8 in their last 10. I come into the season, I thought Dallas had the best chance to make that leap. right? They played the Aces in the semifinals. Played them tough. Obviously, the Aces just blew right through them, but played them tough. Young team, and you're expecting them to struggle. And might get that experience against Vegas helped them out a lot. Nothing's happened. Sabley hasn't played. Thank you, bro. Bruce. Bruce is like, that's why Bruce is getting his own show here. Bruce is on point. Sabley hasn't played this season, so a lot of it has gone on Ogumawale, who is trying to carry the load, and it's hard by herself. So I think that's going to be the issue. Can they get it together to make the playoffs? Yes. But they had to leapfrog a whole bunch of teams, including Indiana, 5-5 in their last 10. Caitlin Clark starting to get her shot, still getting beat the fuck up. Sorry, Mom. This league, and I said it when the season started, I feel like you watch any game, and it doesn't have to be the Liberty for us in New York. Any game you watch is competitive and it's fun, right? I feel like the WNBA season has been really fun this season as of late. My issue is, can the Liberty keep it up? I think that's always the question with the Liberty, right? They start fast. Can he keep it moving? It's I give them credit because it's this condensed schedule because the Olympic break coming up and stuff like that. So everything kind of pushed together. And, we look at the Fever, they play like 8 games in like 15 days or something like that. Some weird crick number like that. The Liberties play a lot of games early on. Can they keep up this pace? Stewie's playing really well. Sabrina's playing well. I think, like I said, Jonquil Jones is playing her best basketball. Can she keep that up? That's going to be important. Connecticut just looks unstoppable right now. I think that's going to be the key right now. And they play really well in the regular season and then fall off in the playoffs. Connecticut's the bigger question of all the teams. Can they keep it up? Because Connecticut is known to be a regular season team, and then they just fall apart completely. So it's going to be interesting to see what Connecticut does, what Liberty does. Can the Aces bounce back? Can my Dallas Wings, can they bounce back? I want to see them. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. The other thing that we missed because we were off was the conversation that happened between Monica McNutt and Stephen A. Smith on her First Take. Now, I will tell you right now, I don't watch First Take every day, if ever. I think Stephen A. is a scumbag, and I don't like him. However, something came across my ex-Twitter feed, and is Monica McNutt pretty much going at Stephen A., and this is after the hit that Caitlin Clark took from Kennedy of the Sky. That was a flagrant. And she made a point where, is there jealousy in WNBA for all the attention that Caitlin Clark gets? Yes. Yes, there is. But are the women in WNBA playing hard? Yes, they play hard every night. Are they playing a little harder against Caitlin Clark? Yes. I don't think that's a fact. That's a fact. I think you have a star of the league that came with all this, especially a rookie. And let's keep that in mind too. Caitlin Clark is a rookie. So she's a rookie with all this attention, all this hype. Yeah, those players like, I'm gonna one, play my A game, and two, I'm gonna knock her down. Because you want to show, first of all, welcome to the league, Rook. And two, all eyes are on her. Like, look at me too. Right? She made a point of saying that it's okay. Everything going on is fine. Like, she's a rookie. She's getting beat up like rookies do in every single league, men or women around the world. It's a thing. It's cool. Stephen A. made a point to say, oh yeah, well, First Take always talks about women's sports in WNBA, which is bullshit because I don't remember in the years I watched First Take, Stephen A. ever going at WNBA basketball as much ever. Him saying that was just like, the hell's wrong with you? And she came back and said, you could have did a lot more. And I agree with that, which is a greater point because you watch like First Take and, you watch Colin Cowherd and you watch the other shows on TV and other talking head shows. And someone made a very good point how the whole Caitlin Clark story, from the time she was in LSU in Iowa facing Angel Reese in LSU, the first time, to now, sports media is a man-dominated field. We're talking about women, and no one knows how to talk about anything about women, it seems like. Men are complete idiots when we talk about women. Hello, welcome in Jason Corden. Jay, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man. How's everything?
Things good. So I talk about Dallas. I want to talk about finals. That's over. I'm talking about Caitlin Clark, WNBA. First of all, you've seen the Liberty live. I want to go back. How's the Liberty look to you so far this season? 12-3 so far.
I think they look like the best team in the WNBA. I don't really hold too much against them yesterday. I think a loss, especially a loss like down the road, would probably help them because they look like they was getting a little bored. They've been pretty dominant the last month and a half. I think yesterday might have been a looking ahead towards Tuesday for the Commissioner Cup, which will make them, I guess they'll be the first New York tri-state team to have played at every arena because they're going to be at the USBS arena up in Long Island. So that should be a home game for them. I think they should win that. They should defend their cup again. But other than that, I think the Liberty are fine. I think the chemistry is finally there. I like how they handle business against Connecticut. I like how they handle business against the Aces. And again, I just think last night was a hiccup for them. But I think they're clearly, in my opinion, the best team in the WNBA right now.
So I said that, and then, you can't ignore the Connecticut Sun, 13-1. I'm at that point where, and I think I said this before you came on, Connecticut's a great regular season team, but never shows up in the playoffs. And it's hard for me to go and say Connecticut's the best team in the WNBA, knowing that their playoff history is so subpar and so just like not great. So
are you calling the Connecticut Suns the Atlanta Braves of the WNBA?
Yes, that's the perfect. See, that's what we hear. That's the perfect. Atlanta Braves, who I hate, I'm a Met fan. They would win every NL East. They would win like the pennant and they win the World Series. They have one World Series to their name in the whole decade of the 90s when they dominated baseball. It seems like the Sun just don't seem like, and maybe it could be different this year, and maybe they have a different type of thought this year, but it seems like they get to the playoffs and they just fall apart.
It looks like that. They definitely shrink under pressure.
And that size don't really mean much. So it's interesting to see that. So I'll talk about Caitlin Clark. We'll go back to that, what we started with. And how it seems the conversation surrounding her is just like deteriorated into like this real bullshit kind of back and forth. And the right wing is kind of taking her in completely. And she's like, no, I want no part of that. Like, Clay Travis, get off me. I don't like that. But it just seems like the men in sports media is bungled this completely. And like the conversations went from like great basketball to now is like all a bunch of like cat fight type shit. It seems like it's broken down into something crazy now.
It's like Caitlin Clark is like that Thanksgiving turkey where it's like you was looking forward to it. Now we're slicing that turkey into turkey salad. We're making sandwiches. We're like everyone's like really stretching this out a lot longer than it needs to be. Like she hits every agenda for everybody. Like if you want to play the race card, if you want to play the what you call it, well, she should have been in a dream. She should have been on the Olympic team a la Christian Laettner going ahead of Shaq. I mean, she hits every talking point you could probably make. But again, I think you're right. I think the men have fumbled it, especially the ones who have never watched the WNBA. Look at us. We've been covering the WNBA since the beginning of our show. Like some of these guys, they've never, like Stephen A. has never talked about the WNBA on First Take until now, and things like that. So it's one of those things where like people don't really understand. Like I was telling somebody the other day, like to some degree, the WNBA is a little bit more physical than the NBA because no one goes to the paint in the NBA anymore. So as the women, they go into the paint, they get knocked upside the head. Sometimes they call a foul, sometimes they don't. I think a lot of stuff that happened with Caitlin Clark has been blown overboard. But like I told you in text a couple weeks ago when I was at the game, I think my only issue with Caitlin Clark is I don't think her teammates like her. And that's something that no one's addressing. And that's something that needs to get hammered out, especially for the longer success of the Fever.
Yeah, and with the Fever, especially, you see her, Aaliyah Boston had a big game the other night. So with those two, you see something, right? You have this really good inside-outside presence, those two. And I feel like you could build around Boston and Clark. But like you said, I think when she got knocked down against Carter,
right?
Was it Kenny Carter? This weeks ago, so I'm losing my mind. And you pointed out how it took forever for teammates to come over and like pick her up.
Yep.
Like usually they run over like, oh, you good? You good? And pick your teammate up. It took a minute for it to happen. But is that a her thing, or is that just like the publicity of her thing that the teammates resent? Because I think
it's a her thing.
You think so?
I think it's a her thing because she was a center of attraction at Iowa. That's one thing. But when she came to WNBA and watching her live, I'm looking at the body language. I'm looking at her teammates. She seems like, in my opinion, she seems like one of those, like, she'll talk that trash when she's up, and she might, like, chill out her teammates if they don't block or they don't set a pick or whatever. She seemed like one of those kind of players where, like, she will demand excellence but won't do it for their team as well. So that's my issue with her. I think it'll get better, but someone's got to address that elephant in the room.
It's like Christian Laettner, I feel like. It's a Christian Laettner thing. I think Laettner would pop shit when Duke was winning.
Right.
But the Fab Five would beat them. Maryland would magically beat them. And Christian Laettner would be dead silent. Wouldn't say a word. So I think, and Bruce just put it out there too. I'll put that up real quick. I think Clark is like MJ to your teammate. She's an asshole to them. I can see that. I can see her going like clapping, give me the ball, let's go, getting mad. When they were down to the Liberty a few weeks ago, big. I think it was the third time they played it, like 2 weeks. She looked pissed and she just looked angry. I'm like, well, you can look angry because you're losing by 30, but it seemed like she just wasn't even trying to like ingratiate herself to her teammates and go, it's all good. We got this. Let's keep it. Like, that's your job. You're the star of the team. You got to kind of keep it moving, especially in. I don't want to make her seem different from like Michael Jordan or Magic or Hakeem, Dominique, like all the stars of whatever team. We go to like a team like Atlanta, who was never good with Dominique Wilkins,
right? And
Dominique was loved. Right, it was his team, but everyone loved Dominique Wilkins. Any team that was bad, you had a guy in the team that was like kind of get it going, right? If you're not up for that challenge of being like, listen, we're in this together. It's us, and not just in the media to say the right thing, but to your teammates. This is what you're going to get, and she might be Indiana long if this keeps going.
Well, yeah, she's their meal ticket. They're going to hold on to her, but God forbid they get the number 1 pick next year. And they get old girl from USC. Woo, that's a good one.
Listen, it's either going to be her, it's either going to be Juju, or it's going to be Paige Beckers.
Yeah. So
you put Paige Beckers with a Caitlin Clark. You talk about two alpha dogs earlier in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. You talk about two alpha dogs with Beckers, especially if Beckers plays a full year at UConn next year. If she's healthy all season and she balls out. You're talking about Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers on the same team. That could be interesting kind of dynamic as well.
Yeah, I agree.
As if Becker's healthy, that's the other question too. But Indiana 5-10 right now, 5-5 in their last 10, winners of the last 2 in a row. So you're starting to see some flashes. I think Leah Boston's getting more comfortable with that. Bruce, they say the Mystics are getting that number 1 pick. 2-12. It is the Mystics' picks to lose right now. Hopefully. They don't pull a Knicks and start winning games at the end and miss out on a high pick and end up at 2. But I mean, Juju will be a sophomore next year. Juju Watkins from USC. Yeah. Would she come out next year? You think she will come out, or would she stay 3? You think so?
I think she'll come out because she knows she's guaranteed number 1. And with the sponsorships that like Caitlin's getting, she's gonna be right there, if not right below her in terms of like getting a nice sneaker deal and then nice endorsement. So I think she'll come out.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if you had to pick between Juju Watkins and Paige Beckers. Who would you pick? This is one of those like NBA drafts I gave 1 and 2. Who would you go with?
Right.
And there was no real right answer. No really knew that answer. Like,
well, I mean, if the Mystics get the number 1 pick, they got to go with the best player. They got to go with Juju.
Well, I feel like if the Mystics get them in Washington, you keep Paige Beckers on the East Coast and you keep her in Washington, which is close to Connecticut, so you get those Connecticut fans. Which obviously, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But I'm just going with what they're thinking. Like, Connecticut's not too far from Washington. We can get UConn fans down here, and they can watch Page. And
but it's like UConn, Georgetown all over again. They'll travel.
Yeah, they will travel. So I talked about the draft, and we'll be back on the 26th, which is what day of the week is 26th next week. This is how much I care about this draft. I don't know what day of the week is. Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday. I thought it was a Wednesday. I'm checking real quick. It's a Wednesday. So next Wednesday we'll be back live. Okay. So I talked about it real fast. How we are not interested in this draft at all, and we're slowly kind of like getting into it. I've been watching more draft stuff and watching the videos and watching these little inserts on NBA.com of like different guys coming out, and how this is Bronny's time. And I think he screwed up because they're kind of only picking certain teams to work out for. And in this such a weak draft, this is the time for him to be a first round pick, and him not working out for all these teams getting his face out there is a detriment. Do you agree, or do you think this is a good strategy from him?
No, it's definitely a detriment. Like I said, it's a weak draft, so now's the time to really showcase, like, hey, I might have not lived up to my draft stock hype in college, but let me show you what I'm working with now. So I think it was a bad strategy. With that being said, someone's going to risk somebody in the late 20s, maybe even the second round. Isn't the second round like they're kind of doing like the football this year with the second round?
Next day. Yeah, it's Thursday at 4 o'clock.
So it would not surprise me. He's like the first pick off the board on Thursday at 4 o'clock. Somebody's going to risk a second round pick on him.
Listen, I said, he is not a first round draft pick. I don't care what anyone tells me. I don't care what anyone says. He is not a first round draft pick. He's a second round draft pick, but I feel like worst case, he's really an undrafted free agent. Because what do you have to go on with him? You don't have a lot to go with, like about Bronny James.
Who has the second round? Who has the first pick in the second round?
Let's see. While I look this up, I will give you $100 if you can tell me who the mock draft has as the number one pick next Wednesday.
I have no idea. I can't even tell you that. I have no idea.
Toronto has the first pick in the second round. So it goes Toronto, Utah, Milwaukee, Portland, San Antonio, Indiana, Minnesota, New York. And that's your first 8 picks in the second round.
He might go to the Knicks.
Oh, God, no. I
because
really want that.
You can't take him in Toronto because you don't want to mess up quickly and whatever plans you got over there in terms of the backcourt. Indiana's stacked. It's not going to be them. Detroit's a mess. It's not going to be them. It might be the Knicks. It might, if the Knicks still have that pick, it might be them.
So in the latest mock draft from Jonathan Wasserman of Bleacher Report, he has, and I'm going to screw this name up badly, Zachary Richer from France going number 1 overall to Atlanta. Number 2, Alex Sarr, also from France, going number 2 to Washington. And number 3, Reed Shepherd from Kentucky, going number 3. Yeah, exactly.
This is not. Oh my God. I gotta brush it up on my drafts because I think 2 French before Reed is a stretch.
Reed, Klingen from UConn is projected to go top 10, but they're saying he can go first. Atlanta may try to pick, try to trade it. I don't like. I'm trying to get hyped up for this because this is like a big night for us because we love draft night. Draft night's big for us, but it's like it's hard to get into this draft when it's like, who are these people? A lot of these people, like, we know the UConn players, we know the Kentucky players. There's a lot of foreign players, and I think the comp is right. This draft is starting at number 8 if this was a normal year.
That's what I mean. The Knicks would have in a normal year. The Knicks would have a top 15, 16 pick, and we're going to move their 2 picks up.
In any year, Rob Dillingham from Kentucky would not be going mock to at number 11. That's late first, early second. not number 11 to the Bulls. Maybe higher than that, depending. It's like they're looking. I think you're looking at next best available player in this draft. You're not looking for like someone's gonna blow the world up, but you're looking for like, all right, who's the best player on our board right now? All right, we're picking him, and we'll kind of fit him in wherever the hell we go.
So you're telling me the Nets missed out on having another awesome, stellar, possibly franchise player in the top 3 picks? Allegedly.
Yep, allegedly. Well, don't get me started because I know Bill Simmons and Russillo will talk about the Nets and how they should move off of Mikal Bridges and start all over again and say, let's just go. Let's just start all over and just blow it up. And they're saying the Knicks is not the best place for him, which I like. In hindsight, he's not. I would love him on the Knicks because I think a Bridges, Brunson, Randall, DiVincenzo, Mitch lineup just intrigues me. But if I'm the Knicks, I will be on the phone with Brooklyn like, what do you want? Like, tell us exactly what you want, and let's start from there and work our way around.
It's time to be a good neighbor. It's time to be a good neighbor. Say, listen, you want McDonovich? Who else you want? You want some expiring contracts? We'll give you two unprotected first-round picks. We're gonna help you get back on your feet. Because I'm pretty sure Nets fans are not happy watching Boston win a championship with those guys. That could have been Nets players.
Yeah, and no, I know Knicks fans aren't either. Because if the Knicks were a healthy team, we would have beat Dallas in the Eastern Conference Finals. Guaranteed. 100% Knicks team, we would beat that team. Bruce said the quiet part out loud. If there are too many Caucasians in the top 10, that's a bad draft.
Damn.
He ain't wrong. He ain't wrong. Especially foreign Caucasians. It was like, Big Country Reeves. Not too bad. But these are guys we've never seen before. So it was a whole different conversation. So, Jason, thanks for popping on, man. I know some stuff was happening, but thanks for popping on.
Of course.
So we'll be back Wednesday night for our annual box out draft extravaganza, which we are slowly getting excited for. Hopefully we will be ready for this. We'll have a copious amount of notes. I'll learn how to pronounce some of these names because there's a lot of foreign names. I expect
a lot of trades on draft night.
I'm hoping for that, so at least keep my excitement level high, because if it's not trades, we're going to be sitting here like, so what's going on out there? How about the G League? Night. So, next Wednesday night, draft. Let's go. We'll be here.
All
so
right.
For Jason, I'm Kahlil. See you next Wednesday. Peace.
This has been The Box Out with Kahlil Thomas and Jason Kortner. Subscribe now for the best tri-state area basketball talk.